Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to change out a motorcycle tire that's running the tubeless system. One quick tip before we jump into this, it's a lot easier to change out a tire if the tire is a little bit warm. So if you set it out in the sun or in front of the heater in your house, it's going to be a lot easier to do it that way. For this job you're going to need a torque wrench with a 14mm socket. You'll need a set of tire spoons. This is a tool that comes with the tubeless system that helps you put the rim inside the tire. You'll need a brush for spreading around the slime on the tire. You'll need a pressure gauge that measures up to at least 110 psi. You need a valve stem removal tool, a 14mm boxed in wrench. You'll need a bunch of paper towels, a tire pump, and slime to put inside the tire. Now all this stuff you can find on Amazon through the links in the description below. Any of the money that comes from that will help support this channel and help us make more videos like this one. So the first step in this process is to let the air out of the tires. So the low pressure side of the system I don't think actually has any air in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this valve stem out. This tire should be flat though because it got a big hole punched in it. Yeah, not too much. So just pull the valve stem out, and then pull the valve stem out on the high pressure side. And then you can go ahead and you can pull off this ring that's on the high pressure side. And then you'll need a 14mm wrench, and you can just pull this nut off here as well. Alright, now that both of those are loose, you're going to need to break loose the bead. I generally like to do this part on the ground because it gives you a little more leverage when you're trying to peel the tire off. So in order to break the bead loose, I'm just going to use my foot and just kind of step on it around the edges here. You want to do this before you try to dish off the tire. It'll be a lot easier that way. You do it to both sides. So now that you have the bead broken loose, the next step is to take off the tire from the rim. You'll need your tire spoons for that. And what you'll do is you'll start by the bead lock here, and then you'll work your tire iron in here. And the important thing, since this is a tubeless system, is that you don't want to grab the red liner for the high pressure side of the tube. You just want to grab the tire itself. And a good way to see, you can see right here where the valve stem is for the low pressure side. This is also connected to where the bead lock is. And if you grab that red liner, it'll try to pull the bead lock in because it's connected to it. So just kind of slowly and gradually grab that, pull it around, and then what you can do is you can actually set that underneath the brake rotor on this side, and that'll keep it from flinging back. And what helps take off some of the tension is to just push the tire down on this side, and that's going to kind of seat it into the low point on the rim, and it'll give you more space to work with. It'll give it a little more slack. There we go. Alright, there's one side done. And you just go ahead and flip it over. And do the same thing on this side. So once you're this far, you're ready to pop the tire out. Spin it around to where the valve stem's on the low side. And then you push the tire rim all the way down into the tire, and then you can peel these off from each other. Nope, I think I need to seat that down in there all the way. There we go. Get down there. There we go. All right. There we go. With the tire, since you have all the slime in here, everything, what I like to do is just take it to the hose and rinse it off and get all the sticky stuff off, and that way you can be working with a clean surface. Alright, so I've rinsed the slime off of the tire and the rim and everything, and it's all clean and dry now. So what I want to do next is I want to take some slime and I'm just going to brush it onto the red liner here and onto the rim as well, and onto the bead of the tire so that everything is really well lubricated. The first time I did this, I didn't use slime, I just used soapy water, and it lasted for maybe half a ride, and then both of my tires went flat. The high pressure tubes were fine, but it just blew out all the air in the low pressure side around the bead. So I've used slime ever since, and it's been working just fine, but I would not necessarily recommend using the soap and water method that is recommended by Tubeless. I think it's an extra step to use the slime, but it's definitely a better way of doing it. So what I have here is I've got a dish and I've got slime, so I'm just going to stick some in here, and I've got this cheap brush that I got at the auto parts store. I'm just going to pop some of this into here. And I also like to lay down some sort of like a cardboard box when I'm doing this because it gets pretty messy. So, probably don't need a whole lot, just a couple of pumps here. Should be plenty. As you're doing this, or even before, it's always good to just kind of check out the red liner, and as much as you can, just make sure there's no dings in it or anything like that. Make sure that it's not compromised, because if it is, it could fail on you, and you just want to make sure you can catch that beforehand. One of the nice things about the tubeless system is that all of the pieces are individually replaceable through the Tubeless website. So if you do have, like, for example, the red liner needs to be replaced or something like that, you should be able to get that piece and replace it. So when you're doing this part, it's a good idea to get the outside and the inside of the both sides of the bead, so that way it's lubricating on the inside against the red liner of the tubeless system, and it's also making a good seal against the rim itself. One important thing, if you're considering using slime, or if you are using slime, it's important that you don't use the soapy water, because it will actually destroy the properties that make the slime actually plug the tire. So it's either one or the other, but you want to make sure when you put this thing together, if you did use water to kind of rinse the rim off, just make sure that it's dry first, otherwise it could compromise the slime itself. So now that that part's done, what you're going to want to do is stick the rim inside the tire. And to do that, you're going to need the tool that's provided by Tubeless, that just seats on the rim there. And you also need a tire iron, probably two, to get it to seat in there. It's important to make sure that when you set this thing in, it is check to make sure the tire is directional, if it is directional. And I know this one is, right here. So the tire rotates this way, which means that I'm going to want to put the rim in this way so that it still goes the same direction, like that. And then you start with the valve stem on the downward side, or the bead lock rather. So you're going to set that in there. You're going to push down on the tire, and that will kind of widen the distance between the bead. And then you're going to press the rim in, just like that. Grab your tire irons and just kind of gently work it in there. So now that you have the rim inside the tire, just go ahead and lay this back down, and then you can kind of pull the rim back so that the bead is seated on the inside of the rim here. And then what you're going to want to do is take your tire irons and just work your way around the tire. And you're going to want to end by the rim lock here, so that the tire has the most amount of slack in it, right? Like it's going to suck into the kind of center of the rim here where there's a little bit more space, and that's going to allow it to pop over the rim. So just there. Work your way around. You do want to be careful in the same way where you take it off, you don't want to snag the red liner of the tubeless system. You also want to make sure that you don't take too big a bite with these tire spoons, because if you do and it snags on the or pinches that red liner, it could take a gouge out of it. So you want to make sure that you're just taking it easy. No need to get too aggressive with this. If you're having to force it, you're probably doing something wrong. There we go. All right, that's seated in all the way around. So now that the tire is on, I want to put some slime inside the low pressure side of the tire, and that is this valve stem right here, the one that has the rim lock on it. Slide it on over the valve stem. You want to get enough in there so that it's got plenty if you ever punch a hole in the tire, and also so that it can help lubricate before you air everything up. And I'm going to take the tire and I'm just going to spin it around and just kind of like let it seat. So now you can take and put the Schrader valve back inside the valve stem here, as well as the low pressure side as well. And I'm also going to take this 14mm nut and I'm going to put it on the low pressure side. As well as the high pressure side. I'm not exactly sure what you call this. It's some sort of a nut, but it says in the instruction manual not to tighten that all the way up against the rim. You actually tighten this up against the valve stem cap. But I'm just going to screw that on there about halfway for now. You can actually take the torque wrench and it says to tighten this down to 11 foot-pounds. That looks about right there. And now I'm going to air up the high pressure side so that everything seats up nicely. And you can do this with preferably an air compressor, but if you don't, any high pressure road biking pump will work as well. Now, depending on how much slime you use, it will ooze out of the seam of the tire here, so it's just a good thing to kind of keep something underneath the tire itself, so that way if it does make a mess, it won't get all over your shop floor. You're supposed to air this up to 110 psi. There. Now, one thing you can do for good measure, just to make sure everything kind of seats up nicely, is you can air it up all the way the high pressure side and then let the air pressure off and then air it up again, which is what I'm going to do. That just helps everything seat in nicely and not bind up. I'm just going to let the air pressure out. And I'm going to put that Schrader valve back in again. And then I'll air it up one more time. So the high pressure side is nice and aired up. Everything seems to be fine there. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to air up the low pressure side. Same way. I like to run 6 pounds in the front of the tire, the tubeless system. Even though you can run much less, I find that for the good stability and good traction, good responsiveness and handling and everything, 6 psi is a pretty good tire pressure for me. Perfect. There you have it. One brand new tire on a tubeless system. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, you can stick those in the comment section below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you need any of the parts or tools for this job, like I mentioned earlier, you can find those in the description below through the affiliate links. Obviously, like this video and subscribe to our channel if you like the content that we're putting out. We really appreciate it. Thanks.